We are recording and I'm letting everyone in.
We'll just give it a minute or two. All right, well, we'll get started. Welcome, my name is Sarah Pearson. I am with the Boca Chamber and welcome to our June Economic Development Committee meeting. I am very excited to have our speaker with us today. But what we're gonna do, usually we go around, we say who we are, what we do, we talk about some issues that are happening around the table, some updates, but because our speaker is extremely busy having the deadline for filing and qualifying be just a couple days ago. She needs to get off by 3:30. So I'm going to actually pass this on to our chair, Constance Scott with FAU, who chairs this committee, so she can get started with the program, so we have enough time to ask Supervisor Sartory link questions. So without further ado, Constance.
Actually, what they wanted me to do is talk as quickly as possible and not go on and on, because I can do that very, very well. What I want to do is I do want to welcome Supervisor of Elections, Wendy Sartory link. And I've known Wendy for more than 20 years, and I have to tell you, she is, the description that she's given of us is so understated in terms of what an absolutely phenomenal and exceptional woman she is, not only to the Palm Beach County, but to the state of Florida. Wendy has been Supervisor of Elections since her appointment in January of 2019. And Wendy has her own business practice. She is a lawyer. Wendy Sartory Link PLLC business law firm. She focuses on commercial real estate, general business transactions, and business consulting prior to her appointment as the Supervisor of Elections. Her overqualifications are extensive. She currently serves as the Executive Committee member of the Florida Council of 100, the Board of Directors of the Florida Chamber. She's the Economic Council of Palm Beach County, but she is, I think, a past president, if I'm not mistaken, of the Economic Council, and she is also on the Board of Directors of the Weiss School. Current member of the Board of Trustees for Palm Beach State College, and I should mention also a former member of the Board of Governors for the state university systems, of which she did an outstanding job, and we miss her. She is a trustee of the Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches, City Place CDD, Executive Women, Place of Hope, Leadership Advisory Board, and a graduate of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, with a BS in Administration of Justice, Political Science in 1986 from the Duke University Law School. And she has 3 incredible boys that hopefully you'll be able to see on her back wall as she speaks. Most of all, there are so many wonderful things about Wendy in terms of her graciousness, her honesty, her integrity, her willingness to do anything that she can to help Palm Beach County and the state of Florida. She is a homegrown girl with deep roots in our community, and she also has an infamous brother, Rick Sartory. So with that, I will hand it over to Wendy.
Well, that was more than generous. Thank you very much. So I'm really excited to be with you all today. As was said, I'm actually born and raised here, and so definitely a Palm Beach County girl. Went to school here K through 12, so and then came back because even if you leave for college, law school, and a little stint in California, but Florida and Palm Beach County are the places to be. So I'm excited to be back, and my last year and a half in this position has been, as you can imagine, full of challenges, but it's also been exciting, and I think we've seen a lot of great changes, and working with a really good staff here to really do all that we can to turn sort of some of the earlier reputation of Palm Beach County elections around, but also leading into what's going to just be crazy for so many reasons. Not just with a presidential election, that in itself would have been crazy, but then you add, we have new registration system, new equipment, cybersecurity issues, pandemic, some civil unrest, and it just makes for it to be exciting to say the least. And but the office is working really hard, and I want you to feel good that we are doing all that we can to be prepared. So today I thought I would just take a few minutes. We'll go through, I'll try to run through a presentation that I think will answer a lot of questions. We've tried to put some of the sort of the most frequently asked questions in here. But obviously, if there's anything that we miss, I am more than happy to answer any questions. And if by any chance we run out of time, and I don't think we will, but you could also maybe give those questions to Constance. I'll immediately answer them for you, get them back to you so that you'd have the answers by tomorrow, because I do want to make sure that we cover everything you all need. So just a quick, a few things. The most important things are when are we voting? So August 18th is our primary election, and you can register for that up through July 20th. And if you're already registered and you want to change parties, so you can do that through July 20th. You see, we have closed primaries here that are listed. That's really important because Florida is not like every other state. There's, I think it's 17 states that have closed primaries. And so since we have so many people here who come from other states and they're used to it perhaps being a different way, and they show up and they don't know that they can't vote in a primary if they're registered as an NPA, which is no party affiliation, or of the other party. So in Florida, it's critical that you know that in a primary election for a partisan race, you can only vote for people who are in the party that you're registered for on vote closing day, which for August is July 20th. You also, for vote by mail, we can mail up to 10 days before the election is when we're allowed to toss it in the mail. So we need to have your request by 5 o'clock on August 8th. And you can do that a number of ways, which we'll talk about. And then early voting, we've actually extended. Normally for August elections, we don't have the full amount of time because it's not a very big turnout. But because of the pandemic and wanting to make sure that we've done everything we can, we've extended that to the full 14 days. So we'll have August 3rd through August 16th as early voting. And we'll do that from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Then we're going to jump into the November election, and you can register to vote for that up through October 5th. And then if you want to do a vote by mail request, that's got to be by October 24th. Early voting for that tends to be a lot busier, and that'll be, we're doing the full allotted days. We've actually asked the governor for additional days, but we have not yet heard from him yet on that, but October 19th through November 1st, and that'll be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. One of the things that we've done, again, in trying to make sure that we're covered is we've extended, we had added 3 additional sites for early voting for the March election. And we've just gotten word from the city of Delray that we're able to open up yet another one there in East Delray. So we'll have 17 early voting locations. We're trying to get one in that Lantana Green Acres area, but we've not yet been able to procure that because those are our busy areas. So we're still trying to work on that. If we can do that, we'll have 18. If not, then we'll still be at our 17. And just wanted y'all to know when those are. As I mentioned, closed primary, we just really try to push that because we often always have people come and they say they just didn't know that they weren't able to do that. You can't change your party at the polls and vote that day. Now you can change your party actually at the polling location, but that would be put it into effect for after that. So it's really July 20th is the last day to change your party for that. And I'm gonna jump right into what are we doing with COVID? Because that's sort of the topic of the day. So we're doing a number of different things. Going a little bit out of order here, you'll see encouraging vote by mail down at the bottom. And want to cover that because a lot of people ask about that because it's an area that is certainly gotten a lot of political attention, as you know. And so one of the things that's really important for me and for our office is what we're doing is not politically motivated in any way. What we're looking at is what can we do for the safety of the voters. Our job is to make it possible for as many people to vote as possible. And what we saw in March was that this pandemic had sort of come up on everybody. And by the time people got nervous about it and decided they didn't want to go out on election day, it was too late for them to order the vote by mail ballot to have us mail it to them. So we're trying to say, listen, that is a safe way to do it. You can obviously vote from your house. And we do have postage prepaid now, so it's easy. It doesn't cost you anything. You can vote in the comfort of your own home, take as much time as you want. You'll have your ballot. If you pre-order it now, you'll have it at least 30 days before the election. Otherwise, if you order it later, we put it in the mail to you at least at the longest 2 days after you order it from us. So we will get that to you as quickly as we can. And if you decide you don't want to vote by mail, that's okay too. Once you have your ballot, it's not you're not set in stone. So you don't have to vote by mail just because you got a vote by mail ballot. As long as you haven't mailed it in already, you'll be able to go to early voting or to election day voting, even though you've received a vote by mail ballot. But so that's really, like I said, it's just a safety issue that we're really trying to make people understand is the reason we're doing this. But we do have 3 ways to vote in Florida. So we have the early voting and we have election day voting as well. So what are we doing to try to make that safe for everybody? And the biggest thing we're doing is PPE. We tried to get this in March, but we're not first responders. And so we always get to the bottom of the list. But I'm happy to report that we have all of our masks and gloves for all of our poll workers. We also have those plexiglass shields that will go in between the poll worker and the voter. So when you're checking in, there'll be a plexiglass shield that will be there. Our poll workers will have their temperatures taken with disposable thermometers in the morning, so that way we know they're not infecting each other or the voters. We also will have hand sanitizing wipes as well as disinfecting wipes that we'll do in between voters. We will actually, if we need to, and we'll watch the turnout, if we need to, we will have somebody there who does nothing but run around cleaning up after voters. So we're going to do all we can to keep that as safe and clean for everybody as possible. And then if a voter does not have a mask or requests that they have gloves, then we will have that for them as well. They can, of course, bring their own pen, or we will supply pens, depending upon the cost. If we can get some disposable ones, we're looking into that. If not, then they'll go into a basket and they'll be disinfected before they're used again. So looking at and saying we'll have masks and gloves for voters who request them. So trying to do a lot. We'll have social distancing. Of course, we'll have the 6 feet apart. But what that does mean is that in each polling location, we won't be able to have quite as many people. Where we normally can have one lined up after the other for your little voting booths. Now those have to be 6 feet apart. We have to have the poll workers 6 feet apart. So we won't be able to have as many check-in stations, and we won't have as many voters in at one time. Probably not a big problem in August, but come November with a bigger turnout, we know that means more lines. If you think about it, back in 2012, 2016, we had lines with no issues and no pandemic. So just think about what that means, and that does mean that there will be lines. We're going to get as many people in and out as quickly as possible. We'll send out individualized sample ballots with the hope that people will have taken a look at them, and maybe we can get them in and out as fast as possible. But we want to make sure that people know that lines are a possibility, and that's why we are also pushing the vote by mail. Poll worker recruitment is critical for us. We did have a lot of people who canceled. We had 1,576 people who had been confirmed and were trained, and they had to either cancel or just that morning weren't able to show up. And so we understand we have a lot of vulnerable people, or people that are in that vulnerable population. So we are doing a lot to attract a lot of new poll workers. The school board just sent out for us, I think it was about 40,000 emails to juniors and seniors, because juniors and seniors in high school, if they are registered or pre-registered to vote, can be poll workers, and there is no school that day. So we're looking for that. We can give them either pay or their community service, however they want to do that. We're also doing a couple of programs that we'll talk about. We're working with the political parties, working with the county, the other constitutional officers. Almost all of them now have agreed to give time off with pay to their workers so that they can help us out on election day. So we're really aggressively looking at how we can get additional poll workers so that we can continue to staff all of the sites. And then one of the bigger challenges we have with the sites is that some of our private locations, and right now we're looking at about 20, have said that we cannot go there. I heard earlier today that there is somebody out telling groups that we've had 200 cancel and that I'm not replacing them. So if you were part of the group that heard that this morning, I want to assure you that's just baloney. We have not had 200 cancel, and anything we have had cancel, we are actively looking to replace. So that's, and that's just because they don't have to allow us there. It's unfortunately primarily our 55-year-old and above communities where the whole community goes to their clubhouse to vote. So they've made determinations that they don't want to have people voting in their clubhouse now. So we are forced to look for other places to go. So we're trying to do some other nearby clubhouses. A lot of those are saying no. So we will look at tax-supported facilities where we know we can go, perhaps schools or something like that. So it just means all of those people who are used to walking will now have to pop in their car and drive to a polling location. To go around saying that we're down 200 sites, because we're not. Voting by mail, one of the things that we hear about is people say, oh, vote by mail, they don't count those unless it's close. Well, I want to assure you that's not the case at all. We are anticipating a big increase in vote by mail ballots, but those vote by mail ballots, if they've been received by us up through the day before the election, so by Monday, if we've received your ballot by Monday, then that ballot will be in the first set of results that is released on Tuesday night. It's a combination of early voting sites, early voting results, and the ones that we've received, the vote by mail we've received up until Election Day. Those that we receive on Election Day are still going through the process, the verification that they've not yet already voted. We're checking their voter history. We're checking the signature on the envelope, making sure that it matches with the signature we have on file, and then it goes through the opening process, canvassing process, and then tabulation. So those will all be reported sometime during the night on election night, but not necessarily the very first results. Voting history are the new equipment and the new registration system we have. It's very helpful because it does allow us in almost real time, within less than a minute, you're a person voting or checking in, their voting history is received back to our system, and we are able to then know. So if they have a vote by mail, it's making it through the mail, and yet they show up on election day to vote or during early voting, we'll be able to tell if that ballot's been received. If it's not, they're able to vote, and once they vote, then if their ballot comes in after the fact, it is rejected because we show that they voted at the local polling location. So we have the ability with voting history to make sure that you're only getting one vote. So we want people to go ahead and get their ballots requested now if they're interested in that, because that certainly helps us with our planning, but also kind of lets something that you can check it off your list. You'll get the ballot very quickly. Give yourself time to get it back. And then if there are any problems with the signatures, and you've heard about problems with signature matching, then we have the time to contact you to make sure that you have a chance to get in and cure it, that you don't have to actually come in. There's ways you can do it with an affidavit and send it to us by email or fax. So we are looking to try to get all of those ballots counted. And then of course, postage is prepaid for the first time, which is important for some people as an accessibility issue and others as just a convenience issue. You don't have to go figure out how much postage you need or trying to find the stamps for that. So that's really helpful, and we appreciate the County Commission for funding that for us. Voter registration system, a couple of things. It's all new for us, and it is much more secure than our previous system, and it's got a lot more backup too. So when we're talking about cybersecurity concerns, that's very important. With that, we were able to tie in our new website. If you haven't gone to it, I would encourage you, pbcelections.org. One of the things that you can do is track early voting waiting times. So since with early voting, you can go to any location. It doesn't have to be the one nearest to you. You can go on, check which of the 17 or 18 locations is somewhere in your area, check what the wait times are. And those are going to be updated every half hour at the minimum. And then choose which one you want to go to. You can also track your vote by mail ballot. So if you do decide to send one in by vote by mail, it'll tell us whether or not we have a request on file for you. It'll tell you when we've mailed your ballot, tell you when we've received it. It'll tell you if there's a signature issue with it, and then it'll tell you when it's been counted. So I think it gives people some confidence when they can track their ballot. The other thing that you can do on election day is check voter turnout. So we do it in live time, which is kind of fun for folks to be able to see. And there's lots of ways you can break it down. You can break it down by party. You can break it down by precinct. You can do it by candidates. So there's a lot of things, not by candidates, by areas. And so there's a lot of ways that you can track the numbers of who has come in without having to, for some of our candidates, it's helped them because they don't have to send poll watchers. They're able to look and see how many people have gone there. So it's just, I think it gives people, again, just more transparency. And we will have that up until about 6 o'clock. We take that down around 6 so that we can then transition the website over to start accepting the results as they start coming in at 7 o'clock. Couple new programs that we have, Adopt a Precinct. We started it this past March. We had a few just to give it a try, and it worked really well. So we're rolling it out more, and that's where charities can come in and they're able to get their volunteers, because we have a lot of charities will say, I've got volunteers, they're ready to work, they're ready and able, they're looking for ways to help us. So one way you can do it is get them to volunteer to be a poll worker. If they volunteer to be a poll worker on your behalf, a couple things, they can do it as an entire precinct. So you can have the entire precinct. And I always use, for example, Girl Scouts or Boys and Girls Club, or we had Barky Pines, the Elks Club, we had the Lynx. So we have different groups who have done it, and they can wear their shirts, they can put up banners letting everybody know that they're the ones who are doing this. It's a good way for them to communicate and to be part of the community. And then those poll workers donate anything that they would have been paid goes instead to the charity. So it's also a good way for the charity to raise money. We're expecting we might have some athletic teams do it, as well as maybe some bands from some of the schools who are looking for new band uniforms. And then Vote in Honor of a Vet is a really neat thing that it's very heartwarming. We put the word out. We got a lot of people who responded who have in some tie to Palm Beach County, either active service men and women or veterans. And they've given us information as well as a picture of themselves about their level of service and what they did. And so we have that rolling on our website. We also have a virtual wall of honor that rolls on a screen in our main office. And then we will take that information whenever we're able to go back into the schools again to register students, and we'll say, hey, this right that you have to vote, it wasn't free. I mean, people sacrificed their lives for this, and they've given their time and they've put themselves out there. So we will give them some piece of information, including a picture of a veteran, and say, when you go to vote on election day, consider doing it in honor of this veteran or active serviceman or woman. And so they'll get a sticker when they go in that says, I voted in honor of a vet, with a line to be able to put down who that was. And again, it's just a way for us to try to get people tied in and remembering why it's so important to exercise your right to vote. Election security. Always a big topic, and like I say, just because we're talking about the pandemic and we're talking about Black Lives Matter and we're talking about so many other things that are happening that are very important in our country, election security and the bad guys didn't go away. So we spend a lot of time working on election security. We don't want you to think that just because it's not front and center in the news, that it's not front and center in our office. One of the things that is important is we do have decentralized elections in Florida. So there's not one location that somebody can come in and tag the entire state. So we do have 67 different counties running elections on their own platforms at the same time. In Florida, everybody uses paper ballots. So even our touchscreen machines, which are used for people who maybe want to see the ballot in Creole or Spanish and want to hear it, also for our visually impaired voters, or even you don't have to be. Some people just like it better. It's actually a pretty cool machine. So they like the touchscreen nature of it, but all that's doing, it's not tabulating. It's just preparing your votes. It will then spit out a paper ballot, and that paper ballot then is what you take over to the scanner to tabulate your vote. So we always will have paper ballots. We do have a cybersecurity specialist on staff now. We're very fortunate to get him. And we work very, very closely with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, the state cyber navigators, and other agencies, CISA and some others that are constantly monitoring. We did join, after I joined the supervisor, we were the only county who hadn't joined what's called the Albert system. And that's where a group from Homeland Security is constantly monitoring attempted intrusions into our systems. And we have a lot of them every day. But what they'll notice is if there are nation state actors or different big groups that are trying to maybe blast into a lot of folks at the same time, then they can let us know, and so that we're aware of that, and we can harden that area even more if we need to. We do results reconciliation at the end. So a lot of people worry about, well, what happens when you're sending those results from the polling location back to the warehouse and to our election center. And what we do is before anything goes over a secure modem, it never goes across the public facing internet, but it does go through a secure modem. But before that happens, when the only thing that's happened is the machine is simply plugged into electricity in the wall, we will then run the results. We take the tape, we bring one of those tapes back to our office. The other is actually posted at the location so that the public can see that. And before we certify the results, so you'll see it's always unofficial results on election day, but before we certify the results to the state and to the public, which depends on which election it is, whether it's 7 or 10 days from the election day, we will go through the tapes of every single precinct, all 871 of them, and make sure that what was printed out is in fact the same as the results that we received through the modem, so that we therefore know that there was no funny business in the transmission. We did that in March for the first time, and I'm proud to say that that was perfect. We didn't have any issues with that. And then afterwards, we do a post-election audit, and that's done in the public as well, so that we can just go back and verify that's a hand recount of all ballots for whatever precincts are drawn. So doing that. Sorry about that. Poll worker, I mentioned it earlier that we really are doing all that we can to recruit poll workers. So really want to tell you, if you have any interest in either being a poll worker, or even if your company can spare 1 or 2 people on that day, every single person that we can get, especially people who are business minded, and so they've got they're not afraid of technology and they're used to working with people, that would be fantastic. We do pay every poll worker between $190 and $320 for the day, depending upon what position they're in. They do have to go to training, again, depending on the position, anywhere from 2 to 6 hours. And it is a really long day. So they're there before 6 in the morning, and they're there until the last voter leaves and the results get modemed in. So you can assume it's going to be at least 14 hours. So that is something that people who have done it keep coming back for it over and over again. So I think that they find that it's really, it's important work. I joke that the most important day of our business, we have 4,000 people who are working for us for one day. So we know how important those folks are, and really looking forward to getting more and more new ones, especially because of the need that we're going to have to replace the 68% of our poll workers that are 65 and over, 68% that we now have to assume that those folks are not going to want to be there, and that we need to replace them. So really working hard on that. Adopt a precinct, I talked about a little bit earlier, and so if you have a charity, let's say a school band, a baseball team, any group, the big issue is they cannot have taken a position on anything on the ballot. So if they've endorsed a candidate or taken a position on one of the constitutional issues, that would take them out of the running. Any individual can have done that, but to adopt the entire precinct as an organization, they can't have done that. So that's something to think about. But if you have any interest, please make sure that you let us know. And lastly, just really want people, when they're getting in there, to be prepared to vote. You need to make sure that you're reviewing your voter registration information, updating or changing your party if you're interested before the deadline, July 20th for the August election. When you are going to go to the polls, if it's going to be on election day, you remember you have to go to the precinct to which you're assigned. Early voting, you can go anywhere. Election day, you have to go to your assigned precinct. Easiest way to look for that is going to be just going onto the website. You can also call our office. We'll give you that information. You check the back of your voter information card that you have. If your location changes, because it's been one of the ones that perhaps is canceled, we will be sending you a new voter information card. So you'll have that as well. And bring your ID with you. If you want to do vote by mail, make sure you request that. And whatever you do, don't forget to vote. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any questions.
All right. So I do see some questions. Do you have time? I know that.
Yep.
Oh, good.
They're pulling it up. They're going to get the other one ready for me in another room. So we're good.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So the first question is, the post office is concerned that if it doesn't get additional congressional funding, it will not be prepared to support additional voting by mail. It sounds like the president might veto the measure. What will Palm Beach County do?
You mean act on gun crying?
I don't know if, hang on, your sound is a little, I don't know, it might just be me. Chime in constant.
All right, can you hear, is this any better?
No, you sound very jarbled now.
Yeah, like you're a robot.
Okay, is there maybe what I can mute this and call you? Is there a phone number for that?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me get it.
Or maybe try just muting yourself and go back on real quick. Now try.
Not that.
No, you're gonna have to call.
All right, I see the phone number, so I'm gonna call it, and then if I'm in, I'll mute this.
Okay. While you're calling, I'll tell you my story. Is every single time that we need something from Supervisor Sartory Link, she's there. When you said earlier that you would get an answer to a question by tomorrow, that is absolutely the truth. Every time we've needed it, had some confusion or something, it's amazing the amount of work that's put in this particular office and how many moving parts. But every time our supervisor makes it look seamless and like always available. So it's been very impressive.
Can you hear me, Sarah?
I can. Is that you, Constance?
Yes. I just wanted to totally agree with you. And I also wanted to say something that in Wendy's position, she didn't mention, but she is up for election. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that is very important is for people who are nonpartisan affiliated or people who are independent, you may only be able to vote in an election that is a primary because there may not be a general in that case. So it's very important for people to make sure that they're registered as a party. They can always go back to being NPA or independent after the primary. But if they want to vote for a particular candidate, in this case, Supervisor of Elections, they have to declare that they are a particular party. In this race, Wendy Link is a Democrat. So if you wanted to vote for Wendy Link, you would register from your independent or NPA as a Democrat, But if you are traditionally a Republican and plan to vote a Republican in the general election, after that race, you could change to either independent, NPA, or Republican. I have done that on different occasions. I've always been NPA, especially as a former elected official. And so I strongly recommend that in order to participate in a very important process, which is a primary, you get registered as a party so you can actually participate.
I think, Wendy, you're,
Yeah,
This-
she's on. Oh,
all right.
we've lost her.
Okay. Can you hear me at all?
We just lost your phone. You just had to call in.
All right. While we're, I think
How about
we-
now? Can you hear me now?
Let's take it, even though it's a little bit
Yeah,
garbled.
we can understand you. You might sound a little roboty, but hey, it's 2020 and we're all on Zoom meetings, virtually. So
I'm sorry, was it like this during the presentation?
no, not at all. It was perfect during the presentation. So, but we can understand you. So I don't know. Do you remember the question? The post office?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Allison's trying to call in for me on the other phone again. I had it up and then I was trying to make it so it didn't. Anyway, I hung it up. I messed that up. So what we're looking at, the state is working with the post office. We are working with them now as well to make sure that we're going to have our ballots ready to drop at the earliest possible day so that they can then internally divide it up a little bit so they can do day at a time.
Perfect.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yay! It's wonderful.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we will. So we're working with the post office to make sure that we are going to be able to space things out. And obviously the state and actually the nationals, at a national level, they're working very closely with the post office. I just can't imagine that our country would put us in a position that we're not going to be able to receive our votes. But, we're going to be watching as closely as everybody at the local level. Like I said, we have a good relationship with the post office, and we are working with them to make sure that when we send our ballots out, we won't overwhelm them. We're going to do it, spread it out over a number of days so that, we can be assured that people who are getting their ballots will get them. And then we're just going to be encouraging people to bring them back to us. Either you can take it to any one of our offices, you can drop a ballot off at any one of the early voting sites, not election day sites, but early voting sites you can do. And you don't have to stand in line to do that. There will be a separate place for you just to go drop your ballot at an early voting site. So we're looking for ways that people can drop their ballot, and if they're going to mail them, to please, please, please do it at least a week in advance to give it time to get back to us.
Awesome. All right. So next question. Hi, Wendy. I've been a clerk since I was 18, so I'm really excited about the younger generation being recruited as a poll worker. Are you looking at doing training via online for all training like you did for the last election? Palm Beach County Elections was running with catching up with technology. So it sounds like
what we're
yeah.
Yeah, so what we're doing with that is if we are doing all of our, we're offering all of our orientations, which don't require you to have hands-on with the equipment, those that we will offer all online. The part of and some of our deputy training, which again doesn't require that you have hands-on with the material, with the equipment, that we can offer online. But a lot of what we do does actually require you to be there with the equipment, but what we are doing is social distancing. So where we used to have one large training room, we have actually set up 5 training rooms. They're not pretty. I can't tell you that they're, we're a little bit of a warehousey facility right now, but we do have 5 different places within our office that we will have set up so that we don't have
large training areas so that people can be socially distanced while they're at training as well, because they do need to have, in order to feel confident, they need to have that hands-on training with the equipment and with the registration equipment.
My goodness, what a machine. All right, so I know you have to go. Do we have time for maybe two more?
One or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Allison's here. Allison's here. She's going to give me the kibosh when I have to stop.
All right.
So,
All right, let's see.
One or two.
How about what happened to absentee ballots? Do you have any concerns with mail-in ballots?
Okay, absentee is the same as mail-in. And the confusion sometimes comes that Florida used to call it absentee. I've heard that it was back in 2002. I'll be honest, I haven't checked that firsthand yet. But for many years, let's say, many years ago, Florida changed from an absentee system where you did have to have an excuse to just vote by mail, where it's open to every voter in the state to do vote by mail. And so because of that, we are in a better position than a lot of the other states that didn't really have a robust vote by mail system. We have had one because we've been doing it for a while. So that is the same as absentee voting.
Okay, and last one. And this is a chair of our government affairs committee, so definitely have to ask this one. How can we be sure we won't have the problems Georgia just had in their primary?
Wow. Lots of toes and fingers crossed, a few prayers, lots of good luck, and some serious preparation by us. So what we're really doing is that's part of the reason we're pushing vote by mail. As I mentioned, Georgia was one of the states that didn't have as much experience with vote by mail as Florida does. So I think that their vote by mail side was more challenged. Also, their laws, because they don't have that kind of experience, hadn't caught up. We are able to start processing vote by mail. We don't pull results until after 7 o'clock on election day, but we can process and tabulate before election day, which puts us in an entirely different situation than Georgia was in. So that's one thing on the vote by mail side. On the election day side, again, it's really going to be, that's why we're doing this huge push that we're doing, trying to get new poll workers to replace those that we have, to get them fully trained, and working, as I mentioned, on getting new polling locations, because our goal is to keep as many locations open so that we have fewer lines at each one. So, so really for us, it's just really working hard on recruiting the poll workers and getting them properly trained and continuing to look for new polling locations to replace those who have canceled because of COVID.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Definitely look forward. Our political action committee, Blue Pack, is just starting the process. So we sent a questionnaire. We're definitely going to be involved in this race and look forward to interviewing you. But you know, you've just brought wonderful things.
All right, thank you so much. And Sarah, any questions that we didn't get to answer, if you just email them to me, like I said, we'll answer them, get them right back to you.
Absolutely, we'll do that. And I hope everyone stay on the call, because we do have some more after this, after our supervisor leaves. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
All right.